If you keep attracting emotionally unsafe people, you're not stupid and you're not cursed. You're trained. Your nervous system learned to call chaos familiar. And familiar feels like home even when it hurts. Today, I'll show you why this happens and how to stop choosing the same pain with a different face. I always end up with the same kind of person. Red flags ignored, then regret later. You feel addicted to intensity, then crushed by instability. You confuse chemistry with chaos. These are some of the similar symptoms that people who grew up in trauma have when obtaining their relationships. We're going to talk about all of that today, and we're going to talk about how you can solve choosing the wrong people in your life. And it may seem complicated or even hopeless right now, but the truth of the fact of the matter is, there is always hope, even in the deepest depths of despair. You guys, my name is Thomas Emmanuel Orms O'Brien, the founder and president of Building a Home Inc., former drug addict and alcoholic, suicide survivor, rehabilitated habitual liar, and for the last 20 years, I've been studying everything there is to know about psychology, neuroscience, and religion from all over the world. Currently, I am also in the pursuit of a degree of psychology. And here at BHI, we understand that our verbiage is very unique to us. So at the beginning of every video, in case we have someone new joining us, we love to explain our framework and why we do and say the things that we do. Long story short, we focus on people who are traumatized individuals from the ages of in utero, basically, up until 12 years old. These are the first 12 years of any human being's life on the planet, are the prime years for healthy and proper neurological brain development. And what most people don't know is that these first 12 years of life are absolutely paramount into propelling you into the type of person that you're going to be for the foreseeable future. Now, most people who come from traumatized home in their childhood are not set up for success. The good news is, just like you can be trained to survive, you can also be retrained to live. BHI is a place for people all over the world who come from traumatic experiences in their household to learn how to live whole, not perfect, but whole, thriving lives. And we explain it in architectural terms because life cannot just be lived passively. It must be lived with intention. We're also a theistic company. We believe in the God of the Bible, but expressed as the universal force of love. And through this lens, we have 7 things that any one human being would need to live a whole life. We have reversed engineered chaos and despair. The first thing in construction, what you do is, like anything, start from the ground up. And we believe life is like a house. So, your foundation must be love and truth. Because love without truth is tolerance, and truth without love is brutality. And the reason why these two are synonymous is so very important, because every human being on planet Earth, if you are a theistic individual, one who does believe in God, the creator of the universe, you would then inherently understand that you were created for a purpose. And that purpose is to discover and help rebuild and reshape the destiny of humanity forever. And the way you do that is from a place of love. Because in this world, in this modern age, the question of reality is very apparent. All human beings intrinsically ask these two questions every single day. Who am I? And why am I here? And to do that, you must put yourself in the basis of reality. Reality is this: to live is a guarantee of pain and suffering. Every single human being understands what that's like, from the least amount to the most severe. Now, what's most important about that is there is only one thing that heals pain and suffering, and that is love. And so if pain and suffering is the most guaranteed reality of this universe, and love is what heals it, then that means love is exponentially the most powerful force that any one human being could experience on this side of life. Obviously, there has to be practical applications to that. It's not just a feeling, it's a verb. It's action that cures anxiety. And why we pair that with truth? Because if love is the most powerful force in the universe, then truth would be its metric. What can be measured? And so truth is what is observable and scientifically verifiable in the universe. And my truth. Now here's the difference between us and maybe some other people. My truth does not mean my opinion, because your truth cannot combat what is verifiable and observable and measurable through science in the universe. So what we say my truth is actually what's true about you. Who are you? Why are you here? Your fears, your pains, your sufferings, your hopes, your dreams, and yes, of course, the most important question, your favorite food. And I say that lightly just to bring brevity to the situation. Regardless, though, that is what would be truth. What is true about the world around you, and what is true about you. The next step would be the basement, the quiet work that no one sees, when who you are outwardly matches who you are inwardly. So the basement for us is identity and integrity. Identity being the person, excuse me, that was created by the universal force of love for a specific purpose in this universe. Because intrinsically, if you believe yourself to be of design, then you would have a specific design, one that is discoverable, one that is tailor-made and uniquely suited for you. And that identity is something that is, number one, either remembered or received. And there's various expressions and exercises in which we take people through to understand that. But regardless, identity must be paired with integrity. Why? Because to be a person of integrity, or an integral or an integritous person, is someone who would, after knowing who they are, or in the discovery of who they are, does their 100% utmost to be that person each and every single day. That is true authenticity, being yourself. And there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, it is what's encouraged in almost every single religious text on the planet. Different sentence structure, different context, but almost as if God knew that pursuit of internal discovery would be what's most important for a human being on the planet. Now, we're not talking about radical self-individualism here, because remember, the foundation is in love and truth. And so if a person would pursue their identity with integrity, as love and truth being their propulsion system, it would be the most selfless thing that you can do, because you would be able to touch others by being who you are. And that brings us into the first story of the house, which is health, physical and financial. Because if love and truth is your propulsion system, your foundation, identity and integrity is who you are, and making sure you are who you are every day, then your motivations would be upward aiming, hopeful, and legacy driven. So, number one, you would take care of the body that you are stewarding. You are living in this body. It is your physical expression of who you are on a daily basis. And the most optimal way of doing that, which is verifiable by science, is to eat right and exercise. Now, there are a trillion different variations within that, but regardless, take care of your physical health. Because I forget who the quote comes from, but it's quite famously spread throughout the internet now. When you're healthy, you have 1,000 dreams. When you're unhealthy, you only have one dream. And so, if you know that love and truth is your foundation, that you were created, that you were designed to bring about change to the world, you would want a healthy body to assist you in doing that for as long as possible. And your financial health, well, in 2026, the way the world has designed itself at the moment is that monetary value is what gives you access. Now, of course, relationships also give you access to many different things, but oftentimes it is money that buys. And so you must be financially healthy for your own personal life, but also to be able to pursue your purpose. And we obviously believe very, very strongly that money is a tool. In fact, it's a mirror. All it does is tell you the truth. Whether you're rich or poor, your financial status is definitely a sign of your mental health. Now, that's not to say there aren't outliers in both categories, in poverty or in extreme wealth. We have very mentally healthy poor individuals on the planet, and we have very mentally unhealthy rich people on the planet. But for the average, especially for a traumatized person like myself or yourself, how we deal with our money is a great indicator of how we're dealing with our inward parts. And that brings us to the second floor, which is vocations, your purpose. You can have more than one. There's 3 different expressions, and there is 4 ways to know what your purpose is on earth. And we go into that in detail. Regardless, though, it is who you are, because you don't get your identity from what you do. You bring who you are into what you do. Number 2, your calling is tied to the worst thing or things that have ever happened to you. Why? Because the only way to redeem pain is in service to those who are currently in it or survived it, much like yourself. That is the only way. Otherwise, life is endless, meaningless suffering, and we should all die right now. Thirdly, it is your childhood dream, the thing that you really wanted to do before trauma was set in your life. And number 4, which I alluded to earlier, is in service to others. That is fulfillment. When everything in your life has pointed you to the capacity of helping and healing other human beings through genuine connection, that is fulfillment. Then the next step we have is the attic, which is joy or hobbies, namely the things you love to do with the people you love doing it with. Because make no mistake, you can listen to any professional, wealthy individual on the planet, and they may tell you that joy is an optional part of your life. But the truth of the fact of the matter is that is just scientifically inaccurate. Your brain requires joy. Dr. Stuart Brown, he wrote the book called Play, says, mind you, he is one of the world's most brilliant trauma psychologists, and he says, I quote, "Work isn't the opposite of joy. Depression is." And so, that means you must be intentional with joy in your life. It doesn't run your life, because that just makes you a hedonistic individual with no discipline, no purpose, but it is an integral pillar of wholeness and fulfillment. Now, you might receive the ultimate joy from your purpose, and we don't say that you shouldn't work the hardest you possibly can to achieve it. Regardless, joy is a requirement. And on the side of the house, we have a chimney, which is release. Long story short, what that means is letting go of the people and things that do not serve your purpose on this side of life. Part of it is understanding that that person who you've kept around for a long time, they're holding you down instead of propelling you to grow. Those feelings of bitterness and resentment towards individuals that have caused you pain in this life, it is smoke filling up your house. Unforgiveness is best quoted, I think, as this: swallowing a poison pill, expecting your abuser to die, but all you're doing is killing yourself. So let it go. Let all of it go. Old habits, bad habits. Now, I'm not saying that it isn't easier said than done, but if you would want to be fulfilled, this is the path to take. And lastly, we have the skylight, which is wisdom or divine perspective, and it illuminates each floor of the house, all of it pointing you towards that ultimate destiny, that ultimate direction for you to become the person that you are meant to be on this side of life. Now, this week's video is a combination of basement, chimney, and skylight. Let me explain. The basement is identity, right? Which is the lies that you believe about love and yourself. We'll also be tackling part of the chimney in this week's video, which is letting go of what you keep returning to, or familiar pain. And then lastly, the skylight, wisdom. That's discernment and choosing with light, not hunger. With all that in mind, we're going to get into it. Why people that come from traumatized backgrounds continuously make the wrong friends and choose the wrong romantic partners. The good news is, as always, what you were once trained to do in your childhood, you can now retrain yourself to do as an adult. There is always hope. No matter who, no matter how far you think you're gone, there is light at the end of the tunnel. So let's get into it, guys. Why you're attracted to unsafe people and the root causes. And of course, I won't be able to lay it all out from top to bottom. Scientific literature, peer-reviewed journals, all presented in front of a body of highly intelligent and qualified individuals. But we're going to break it down in layman's terms that all of us can understand so that we can start observing patterns. One quote that we live by at BHI, Building a Home Inc., is this: awareness brings clarity, clarity brings options, options bring opportunities. Once you are aware of a behavior, pattern, system of belief that may be false or detrimental to your life, you can then start making the choice, that option, to start living differently. And once you start living differently, those opportunities that present to you, I'm telling you, will be life-changing in the most amazing way. Now, obviously, we have our Skool program in which we take individuals through this in a tailor-made, very specific way to them. Our results are not typical, but on average, we work with people, they say their life is changing for the better. And of course, I can tell you honestly, faithfully, and truthfully how these concepts have changed my life for the better. So let's get into it. Number one, we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but familiar feels like safe, even when it's not. Your body recognizes chaos from childhood and mistakes it for home. This is why your childhood years, specifically in utero to 12, have the most impact onto who you become as an adult. After 12 is when you enter into a stage of identity formation, but those first 12 years are basically your foundational principles on which your identity is going to be built from a neurological perspective. Now, if all you knew was insanity, abuse, chaos, divorce, abandonment, neglect, control, then the natural byproduct of that environment is what you will seek. And of course, you will be bringing all of that with you into a relationship. If it's a romantic relationship, it is very much heightened, but also just into friendships in general. So these are things that you can use to perhaps analyze, give yourself curious grace to explore your past, not severe judgment. There is a great distinction there, because judgment produces shame and fear. Curious grace produces a platform for change. Number two, you learned that love is inconsistent. As most of you know, if you've been here before, I had a very abusive biological father. He was either absent, or when he was present with him, 75 to 80% of the time, life was chaotic and insane. Now, it's taken me a lot of time to understand that he was doing the best he could with what he had. My grandfather was far more abusive to him than he was to me. But the bar was only a few inches off the ground. Wasn't that high. So while yes, my father was better to me than his father, my grandfather, was to him, it still was not that great. He would never possibly receive the Father of the Year award. May he rest in peace. Obviously, there are some good things in which I retain from him, but most of those happened before my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. After my parents' divorce, unfortunately, he revealed to me who he really was as a person inside. So, divorce teaches love can disappear, or abandonment. So, you accept scraps and call it loyalty. If the bar was low when it was presented to you, most likely that's the bar that you're going to have when it comes to other people. You will have friendships that, if you were to observe it from a psychological, neurological, loving, faith-based perspective, wouldn't be that great for you. But because they showed you a little bit more love than what you're used to, you hang on. Number three, you're in pursuit of a redo. And I lived that way for a very long time. You subconsciously try to win the love you didn't get by choosing someone similar and trying harder. There are two paths that one person takes neurologically and psychologically when they come from a traumatic childhood. One, externalization, which means you realize that your environment was not a result of who you are, so you blame everybody else. You say to the world, and it is never anyone's fault, or it is never your fault, it is everyone else's fault. And unfortunately, that maladaptive coping mechanism has its own set of problems. Or number two, introjection or internalization. You say, everything that's happening to me is so horrible that it must be my fault. I must be the bane of everyone's existence. So you receive the abuse, and then you abuse yourself, and you blame yourself. Now, most people have a profile that is hybrid. There are extreme cases where one person is 100% in either direction, but most everyone has both. They just lean a slight percentile more in one direction or another. My personal makeup was probably about 70% introjection, I blamed myself, and 30% externalization, where with specific contextual situations and feelings, I blamed others. And it's something I still work on. It's something that is deeply seated within my neurological and my nervous system. Regardless, though, we're on the path, right? That is the point. Progress, not perfection. You're being perfected, as it were, to reach your final end result, whatever that is. The right mentality is one step at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one. Number 4, your boundaries were never modeled. Something that a traumatized person deals with is usually complete obliteration of boundaries, because you were never raised in safety and consistency, which then allowed you to develop proper and healthy personality. And so you don't have the capacity to engage in relationships where who you are doesn't get lost in who they are. There's that line. You can be empathetic, you can be intuitive, you can be loving, you can be kind, you can be patient, you can be selfless, you can be have self-control. But also, most of the time what happens is that you bring that person onto yourself fully and completely, and it's not your job. It's not your job. So part of healthy boundaries is, number one, being honest about your thoughts, desires, and feelings, but also not allowing someone else's thoughts, ideas, and feelings to intrude into your soul space, into the very fabric of your being, because then you're constantly lost. You're always for them, never for yourself. You become that chameleon to where you are the friend to whatever that person says or needs in front of you. You're never yourself. Parts of you maybe express, but you aren't just you. And so, nobody taught you, no. You'll keep negotiating your needs. Number 5, you confuse intensity with intimacy. Texting highs, jealousy, pursuit, makeup cycles. Your body reads that as passion, but it's often dysfunction. What do I mean by that? Unfortunately, in this modern day and age, Hollywood has painted a picture of what a real, loving, caring, intimate, deeply committed relationship looks like. They make it about the intensity of feelings. And so, when feelings fade, we leave. And that's just not the truth of what love is. In fact, if you are in the quote-unquote pursuit of happiness, you'll never find it. Because happiness is a combination of chemicals that react, and then your brain distributes that feeling through your spinal cord and your nervous system, and you feel happy. But if you're always going to be searching for circumstances that make you feel happy, you'll never understand the long-lasting and eternal state of joy. Because you can remain joyous 100% of the time. You cannot be happy. The difference is, joy is a state. It's a state of being. It's a state of mind. It's something that can be called upon even in the most horrid and horrible of situations. But happiness is something that's not in your control. Your brain is. There's that distinction there. So, those intense feelings, when they fade, you fade along with them. And it'll never work that way. Number 6. Peace feels boring. And you don't trust it. Why is that? A stable person can feel suspicious because you're waiting for the rug pull. Right? There's this amazing quote that I heard. Success is boring. It's another Tuesday. Success is one brick on top of another. Systems, consistency, discipline, showing up even when you don't want to, being the person who you should be even when you don't feel like it. Very mundane, very boring. Here's the problem. Your nervous system only understands chaos. So peace actually makes you afraid. To be still gives you anxiety. Because you weren't trained for stillness. You were trained for chaos. So, as a survival mechanism, your brain actually produces a really intelligent response. And it's called self-sabotage. Because better you be in control of the pain than the actual pain of the person that you love hurting you to a degree in which you cannot possibly comprehend. For many years of my life, I lived this sentence. You personally cannot hurt me more than I can hurt myself. And that led me to being alone and in despair. And when you live in despair for too long, you no longer want to live. And I witnessed that for myself. And so, understanding that your natural inclination to run is probably not correct if the person truly loves you. And there's ways to know if they do or don't. Regardless, though, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you tolerate. And when your tolerance for abuse is high and your discernment for love is low, you will find yourself in many relationships that not only will kill you internally, possibly externally, but also the person that you're engaging in that relationship with. Because it always takes two to tango. Whether it's a 99% to a 1 percentile, or a 50-50, or a 60-40, or a 78-22, doesn't matter. Regardless, though, I want you to remember that. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you tolerate. So subconsciously, when you're an abused individual, you seek that out. Or you seek out a suboptimal relationship that is not what you want at all, but it's what you think you deserve, which is what happened to me. My first marriage was not based off of mutual desire or affection, nor shared values. I married someone because I thought I deserved to marry the type of person that I did. And unfortunately, we hurt each other, and it ended in a divorce. That divorce was actually the best thing that ever happened for the both of us. It saved her from me, and me from her. Here's what I want you guys to understand about the unsafe person profile. Make it clear and practical. And when I first understood these things, immediately faces popped into my mind of relationships that I was still engaging in, not romantically, but through friendships. And it was very jarring because I realized almost every single person I thought was a friend actually matched this list. And I had to go through a big purge in my life. And where I'm at now is still in a result of that purge. I have new friends, much better high quality relationships, because I now have the right standard. And the right standard is not just something that is morally accessible to every human being on the planet, and other cultures, diversions from my own thinking, of course, will have different standards. But there are basic things that are wired into human biology that we all need. Love and safety. The polyvagal theory by Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about how human beings are not singular creatures. We require connection. And of course, if you're a faith-based individual like myself, you understand that yes, that is part of the design. That part of understanding the spiritual is by loving God, loving others as you love yourself. Now, that second one, very important to understand. As you love yourself. Meaning if you don't understand nor receive unconditional love, you possibly could not give it. Why? Because you can't give what you don't have. Plain and simple. That's just physics. Now, the unsafe person, in a clean and practical way for all of us to understand, is in a checklist. And it's non-clinical, because I am not a clinician. Even in my pursuit of a degree of psychology, I don't plan on being a clinical psychologist. But, like I said, these are the things that are verifiable through scientific text and human exploration and discovery for the last 10,000 years. Regardless, emotionally unsafe people often do a few things. One, they punish honesty. If you truly express yourself and who you are, they punish you for it. That's an emotionally unsafe person. We're not talking about challenging an opinion or a mindset, right? Having a upward aiming discussion of people with different ideals, discourse to obtain, right, a healthy debate between one person and another. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when you say, I feel this, and they say, you're stupid, you're a piece of shit for feeling like this. Right? Not safe. Number 2, they weaponize silence. When you grow up in a situation where you understand that your voice cannot and will not be heard, sometimes you learn to just zip your mouth. Even an emotionally unregulated and or regulated person understands that sometimes silence is the best medicine in that moment. But when they attack you for your silence, again, it's not a call of accountability. If you're being passive aggressive and giving someone silent treatment to punish them, obviously that's not the correct behavior. But if you're choosing silence as your healthy mode of operation in that specific moment, and they weaponize it against you, again, unsafe. When they make you earn basic care, right? Even atheistic individuals worldwide that do not believe in God as the universal force of love, connecting all human beings on the planet together, know through philosophy that there are basic levels of care that human beings need, right? Physically and emotionally, just based off the science. And if that person denies you those basic levels of care, right, which is to treat you amicably, treat you with respect, give you space to learn, grow, and be better. Obviously physical, right? Sexual needs that's separate territory, but respect of your physical space, meaning they do not physically harm you. And then, of course, mental, right? They don't speak down to you. They don't, treat you as subhuman, shall we say. Let's put it all in that category, right? They love bomb, then withdraw, right? This is a classic personality subset of sociopathic abusive individuals. They withdraw themselves from you, which makes you seek out their love and attention. And then when they don't give it to you, your natural survival response, which is intelligent, would be then to distance yourself and to start contemplating whether or not you're going to stay in that relationship, and perhaps move beyond that relationship and start to inquire of someone else, somewhere else. And so, because they want to keep you in that loop, they want to hold that power over you, they love bomb the living daylights out of you, and you think, oh wow, I made my stance and they changed, we're turning a new leaf. If they were just like this all the time, and then the pattern repeats itself over and over and over and over again. And the problem with an abused individual or a traumatized individual is it's very hard to break free and even observe that cycle, because again, this is what you're used to. You're used to being controlled. You're used to being manipulated. And you're used to an insane amount of love and then nothingness, right? Next is blame you for their behavior. Classic gaslighting. Forget the other clinical terminology for it, but regardless though, if someone blames you for their behavior, punches you in the face, and then says it's your fault, I wouldn't have physically assaulted you if it wasn't for you. Obviously, you have a problem there. But it can be even more subtle than that, right? They mistreat you verbally, and then you say, why did you do that? You hurt my feelings. And they say, well, it's because you XYZ. Next is they can't repair after conflict. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity in an individual is conflict resolution. Now, it's more difficult for a person from a traumatized background to get there. I myself am on my way for sure, but by no means do I have the golden ticket. Being married to Vanessa has forced me to look in the mirror and realize, whoa, buddy. Now, of course, um, it's a little bit different for us and unique. She is also a traumatized individual. I have an ACEs score of a 9. She has an ACEs score of a 7, which means two people who went through hell growing up uh, decided to embark on this journey of life together. And I'm sure there's many other people who um, are in the same boat as she and I. But we decided that after we've learned these concepts ourselves and started applying them to our lives real time, we have a really beautiful story. And one day I will share it, and I have shared it in detail. Regardless, though, um, one marker for her and for I is that we see every conflict as an opportunity. Because when conflict arises, it is a sign, shall we say. Your heart, your mind, your soul are giving you a alert signal as to what requires growth in the relationship from the both of you. Now, we're not talking about a standard disagreement like, oh, she likes McDonald's and you like Burger King. No, we're talking about conflict on a real level with people who are in deep, exclusive, committed relationships that are trying to build something akin to a life together. And yeah, it will present itself, and you have an opportunity in that moment. Now, if the person you're with, like I said, can't repair after conflict, they drag it on and on and on and on and on, and you get to a point to where you suppress yourself just to make everything okay. That you never receive a true apology, nor reconciliation, nor closure, then again, that is an emotionally unsafe person. My biological father, he died in 2022. Till the day he died, we were never able to have closure, really. I would express honestly the things that he did to me growing up, the situations that he put me through, how it affected me, and he was in denial for the most part. He never apologized, and it was very difficult. So when he died, it was bittersweet. I couldn't mourn him perhaps as a normal person would. In fact, I wouldn't understand, at least in that situation, how to mourn a good father, which I'm sure is very painful and very impactful. Understanding that, you know, a great relationship is leaving your life. I don't know what that feels like. Um, but yeah, I mean, in fact, I was relieved. You know, that's one of the stages of grief, is relief. Um, but I was relieved in a way that only a person who is in an abused abuser relationship could be, and that is, I don't have to deal with him anymore, which is sad. It's very sad. No father or son should ever know what that feels like, but unfortunately, that was our case. And I learned a lot about him after he died. That made it, you know, a little bit better, but still bittersweet, because uh, you wish you had the best version of that person, whoever that person is for you, and you didn't. So even if other people tell you how great they were, you only have personal context and your priors, right? So what you have to understand is that unsafe people don't resolve conflict. they reset the rules every single time. Now, the good news is this. As you know, we properly define trauma at this company, and trauma properly defined is not the event itself that happened, but the wound that you sustained as a result. And you might be saying to yourself, Thomas, what the heck is wrong with you? How could trauma being properly defined be good news? Well, the good news is that because it is a wounding internally, you're able to observe the nature of a wound. And the nature of a wound is this: it can be healed. Now, there is severity of the wound, which means it takes longer and much more work for healing and restitution to happen, but it can be. That's the good news. Whatever, how far it is, however hard it is, the good news is it can be healed. And if it's infected and, oozing pus, death, destruction, negativity, you can go on an antibiotic treatment and you can clean and dress the wound, you can apply sutures, and then it'll scar over. And, this, even the nature of the scar, it will be a little bit rough. That part of the skin where the scar is will be changed, so you will be changed from it. But regardless, healed. And so we have some practical things, some brick by brick steps, how to stop choosing unsafe people, tools for you guys. Brick number 1, stop calling it my type. Both ladies and gents. You say, I have the type. This is my type. That's why it keeps happening to me. I like this. I like the bad boy. I like the bad girl. And then what happens? And then you're like, oh no, it's just my type. No. Call it what it is. A pattern. And when you're able to observe the pattern, you can disrupt the pattern and insert change. Systems, engineering. You guys rolling with me? Let's go, baby. Come on. Let's get excited. Brick number 2. Identify your familiar pain. What do I mean by that? Ask, what kind of pain feels normal to me? Now, it might seem like an insignificant or a mundane question, but through that question, you're able to ascertain and create some distance from your reactions and selections. Brick number 3. This is skylight wisdom here. Set non-negotiables. So 3 non-negotiable examples could be this: consistency, accountability, emotional maturity. So the person can repair after conflict. Because that's what you want to look for in a person. Yes, first, it must enter through the eyes. Mutual attraction and desire is necessary. That's step 1. After that, though, the next most important thing is not sex. It's selection of characteristics and traits. Because if the mutual attraction and desire is there, most likely sex will be good. But you know what creates real and true intimacy? When you're in love with who they are on top of how they look. Woo! I had no idea something like that was possible until Vanessa came into my life. She is a bombshell, 10 out of 10, Coke bottle, the whole 9 yards. She's a Latina Colombiana. The spice. But the characteristics, the inward parts, who she is as a person, what she does for me. My life, my stats are up I popped all the XP tokens with her. I'm leveling up exponentially daily with her. I'm master prestiging every single day with her because of who she is inwardly. And on top of the physical attraction, oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. Brick number 4. This is the slow test, what we call a chimney detox in BHI. Safe love moves slower. Unsafe love rushes intimacy to bypass discernment. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Take your time, guys. Take your time. If you're that horny, go rub one out. Take your time. So the rule being this: if they rush you, you slow down. Because if they really, truly care and love you as a person, they will make true and intelligent consideration of your responses, meaning they pause on their desire momentarily, right? Ideally, you want both desires to be met, but they're able to pause and say, okay, they're slowing down while I'm trying to speed up. What's the situation here? Then you can have clear-cut communication and discovery of what's best for the both of you. Very good. Brick number 5. There's boundary proof, right? Which is basement integrity. And now I'm not talking about testing continuously and consistently throughout the relationship, because that's unhealthy. But there are proofs that you can see and observe, witness, right, and feel from that person. So watch what happens when you say a few things. Watch what happens when you say no. That's like a real good indicator of where they're at. If they're like, I want this, you say no. Watch what happens. Watch what happens when you say, I need time. Watch what happens, here's the big one, the big kahuna, when you say, that hurt me. Safe people adjust. Unsafe people punish. Now, we're not talking about dumping your rules and everything about you upon the other individual, because if you're safe, you will also adjust to them as they adjust to you. Right? Like I said, it takes two to tango. Brick number 6. Choose stability over sparks. What do I mean by that? Butterflies aren't romance. There's a neurological study that was released. That butterfly feeling that we get, that we call in every Hollywood movie, it's actually fear and anxiety. If someone gives you butterflies, that's not good. That means you're having an internal fight or flight response to that person. Right? And in fact, it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with you. It means you're afraid. So you cannot avoid fear to conquer it. You must face it. Fear, face everything and rise. Face everything and run. The only two iterations possible. So when you feel afraid, you cannot ignore it. You must face it. Figure out what it is. And so this whole butterflies garbage is antiquated, unscientific, non-faith based, which makes it even worse. So remember that. Butterflies aren't always romance. Sometimes they're a warning. Heed the warning. Brick 7. Replace the old house with the new one. You must build new home signals. Your familiarity must become a new type of familiar. Your patterns must engage in new pattern making. It must become new, right? So start looking for peace instead of panic, predictability instead of chaos, repair instead of division, and truth without punishment instead of abuse. Because that's what abuse is. The truth is presented, negative response. And we're talking about negative in the detrimental sense, right? 'Cause sometimes the truth hurts and you can be mad at the truth. But going above and beyond that and making it a detrimental response to truth, you have a problem. So here's what I want you to know. You're not doomed to repeat your parents' story. I thought I was. You can rebuild your internal home so you stop calling chaos love. Basement truth, chimney release, skylight wisdom. If you guys want an individual tailor-made walkthrough of these concepts for your life, join us at Skool. We have both free and paid versions of what we do. Obviously, the paid versions indicate a much more intimate and personal experience. Regardless, though, we're trying to build a community of peoples who have decided that their past does not define their future. And when you're changed, you can help change others, which then does what? Change the world. So I want you to comment safe and finish this sentence. The red flag I keep ignoring is blank. Like, comment, and subscribe, if you will. This has been Thomas Emmanuel Arms O'Brien. Love you guys. See you on the next one.